Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Lil Smooth from the By Yourself Crips, who was shot and killed in 1993. Lil Smooth, born Philip Woodamariam in 1973, and he will be raised in Eritrea, Africa. Now, at the age of 5, he will suffer from diabetes, but due to the economy, insulin at the time was very scarce. But eventually, by the age of 6, his mother and father would pack up and flee Africa and move to America. But initially, they would move to Idaho before settling in Long Beach, California in 1980. Now, Philip would attend school at the Palms Elementary in West Los Angeles. Now, he would later go on to attend Palms Junior High, where he would discover his love for basketball. He would join the team and play from grades 6 to 7. But even with his love for sports, his father's #1 rule was that education was extremely important in that household. Now, later on, Philip would attend Hamilton High School, where he would continue to play basketball his freshman year. Now, from time to time, he would miss school due to his diabetes. Now, around this time, gang violence in Los Angeles had reached a new height, and Hamilton High School would also be affected by gang violence. Now, gangs like Schoolyard Crips, Playboy Gangster Crips, Blast and Fool Crips, and many other hoods would go to this school. And this would lead to fights, shootings, stabbings between rival gangs, and also issues between Black and Latinos at the time. Now, with all this going on, Philip will get put on to the By Yourself Hustler Crips, and he will start going by Lil Smooth. Now, the By Yourself Hustlers has multiple sets throughout West LA, and at the time, they had hoods in Palms and Miracle Mile. But Smooth would have very close ties to the Vinton Avenue clique. Now, as time went on, Smooth would eventually drop out of high school due to health reasons, but also he had just started running the streets heavily. But even while in the streets, his father was able to get him to start working for him at the family construction company business, delivering materials to different companies. But by 1989, Smooth would have his first run-in with the LAPD, and he would be bitten by a canine dog and had to be treated at the hospital. But his bad behavior would not stop there. It would only continue. And not only that, Smooth will completely stop taking his diabetic medication, and he would start to develop mood swings and being very irritable. And this would lead to a call to CPS, and Smooth will be removed from his parents' household and placed in a foster care for a few months. Now, the following year in 1990, a 17-year-old Lil Smooth will be arrested and this time sent to juvie. And at this point, his family was struggling. But once he served his sentence, he would get out at the age of 18. Now, once out, his home life was completely different because at the time, his mother and father were living separately, with his father working out in Arizona and his mother now staying in Northern California. Now, this fractured home would lead to Smooth to start politicking in the hood heavy in the Palms area. And not only that, he would start toting a pistol everywhere he went. Now, Smooth was known for not backing down from any type of confrontation. And this type of mentality would lead to him being shot multiple times. Now, his wounds wouldn't be fatal, but he eventually will recover. Now, by 1992, gang violence would really start to heat up all over the city, and murders had become an everyday, regular occurrence in the city of LA. Now, by February 1992, Lil Smooth would be arrested for being in possession of a loaded firearm after trying to skip out on paying the bus fare. Now, he would plead no contest and eventually get 1 year probation. But just only a few months later, Smooth would be kicking it with his homie at Woodbine Park and get into an altercation. Now, during this altercation, Smooth would try to take a gun from another man, and in the process, he would be shot twice in his legs. He would be immediately rushed to UCLA Medical Center, where he would survive these injuries. But even with being shot on 2 different occasions, this would not deter Smooth from the gang life. Now, in October 1992, Smooth and his homies will be playing basketball at Palm Junior High. But things will escalate when a rival hood would show up and Smooth would get into a shootout with him. Now, not long after this shooting, he would be arrested for discharging a firearm with gross negligence. This would lead to him spending a few months in jail, but ultimately, he would get probation. With Smooth still refusing to take his medication, he would start to lose a lot of weight and start suffering from seizures and having headaches. But even with all his medical problems, his brother, who had stayed in New Mexico at the time, wanted to get Smooth away from the street life and invited Smooth to come live with him in New Mexico. So on his 20th birthday, he would go down to visit his brother in New Mexico, who would surprise him with a white 1978 Buick Regal. Now, while down in New Mexico, he, along with his brother, would discuss Smooth enrolling back into school to get his diploma. And with all this talk and new inspiration, Smooth has seemed excited about the possibility of getting his life back on track. But once he got back home to LA, he would find himself right back into the mix in the hood with his homies. Now the summer of 1993, Rolling 20's Crip, Snoop Dogg, who was working on his debut album, would move into the Palms area. Now with Snoop living in this area, he would attract a lot of attention and get a lot of love. But on the flip side, not everybody was happy that Snoop had moved into the set. And Smooth would be one of those people that wasn't exactly happy about it. Now, a lot of people said that Smooth would roll up and down the block where Snoop lived at, taunting and trolling Snoop and his people every chance that he got. But at that point in time, things never escalated beyond words. But sadly for Lil Smooth, this aggressive behavior would eventually cost him. Now, early in the summer, Smooth would get arrested on a DUI and a reckless driving charge and have to spend a few months in county. But eventually by August, he would be released. On August 25th, 1993, Smooth, along with some other Crips, would head up to Woodbine Park to go get some food and buy some weed. Now, while driving down the block, Smooth would spot one of Snoop's homies, Sean Abrams, along with the other few individuals standing outside of Snoop's apartment, talking near a vehicle. Smooth would then lean out the window and start throwing up his hood while hanging out the passenger window. Now, both groups would get into a heated exchange, and that's when Smooth would pull out a .380 and point it at him. But once he did this, his homeboy would then pull off and drive down the block. Now, Smooth and his homeboys would continue to Woodbine Park. But 20 minutes later, Snoop and his bodyguard and another one of his homies would come driving down the street past Woodbine Park. That's when one of Smooth's homies named Joseph would flag them down and Snoop would pull the car over. He would then approach Snoop's car and apologize immediately to Snoop about how Smooth was tripping and that he didn't mean any harm. But only seconds later, Smooth would then run up and his homie Joseph would try to grab him, but Smooth would then shove him away and start talking aggressively to Snoop and them while walking towards the vehicle. Now, as the argument continued to escalate, that's when Smooth would lift up his shirt and flash his .380, and out of nowhere, Snoop's bodyguard named Malik opened fire. Malik would let off a total of 6 shots. Smooth would attempt to try to run, but he would be hit in his hip and upper back. Now, although injured, he would continue to run to a nearby alley, and only seconds later, he would collapse on the ground. Now, 911 would be called, and police and EMTs would arrive not long after. Lil Smooth would then be rushed and transported to a nearby hospital, and sadly, he will be pronounced dead at the age of 20 years old. Now, only one day later, Snoop and his bodyguard Malik would then turn themselves in to the LAPD, and both men will be charged with first-degree murder. Now, during the preliminary trial, Smooth's family would be extremely upset over the entire ordeal and how the defense would try to paint their son.
We are completely surprised about the justice system in this country, really.
It happened in this Los Angeles park. Snoop's bodyguard shot and killed Philip Waldemariam. Snoop didn't pull the trigger, but he, the bodyguard, and a third man were all charged with murder because prosecutors say they hunted down Waldemariam after an earlier argument.
But by February 1996, both Snoop and his bodyguard will be found not guilty of all charges.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Calvin Brodus, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.